Good morning and welcome to the program Perspectives. Perspective this morning on Invicta 98.9. And this morning we're still with Democracy Day and talking about Democracy Day, looking at what has stalled our democracy and if it has been stalled in any way. And this morning we're also looking at how we can get out of the woods in the state of the nation. And this morning, we're looking at one arm of government, very key arm of government, again, in this process of democracy, and that's looking at the judiciary and how it has fared in the democratic process. This morning, I'll be looking at democracy in Nigeria and looking at how we've gotten it on with 22 years, some people will say, with the democratic process. And looking at it and looking at how we can get out of the woods. Our focus this morning would be on the judiciary, how we fared in this democratic process. And my guest this morning is Barrister Gloria Ballason. Barrister Gloria Ballason is the Chief Executive Officer of the House of Justice. She's a commentator on national and international affairs and a public analyst. Gloria, good morning and glad to have you with us this morning.
Mr. Tony, is always a privilege.
All right. We do talk about it. Justice delayed is justice denied. That's what we get with the judiciary. And that arm of government, which should be a stronghold in checking the balances of the executive and the legislature, is one question that we ask about how it has fared in the democratic process. For you, an overview of the judiciary in this democratic process.
I think that just taking it off from the quote that you made, we can begin to analyze what the present situation is after returning from the judiciary union staff strike. And you would know that last year, because of the pandemic, people were away, so the courts were closed. Those who were arrested or those who had allegations against them didn't have access to the court. If you put that together, we are talking about 15 months already. So if you're a litigant in court and you have gone to the court to seek justice, it means that for 15 months you're delayed. And you're not even sure how it's going to pan out moving forward, because right now it's a melee in the court processes. Everybody trying to just file in what they can. And it's almost impossible with the rate at which we are going for us to catch up. 1 year is a lot of time. But I think on a broader spectrum, we would need to look at how the judiciary, which should be the balance in any country and in any democracy, has fared in Nigeria. And again, when you look at this present dispensation, the Buhari dispensation, this is one government that has the highest number of lawyers, not just lawyers, but very senior lawyers. So the vice president is a professor and a senior advocate. The secretary to the government is a very senior lawyer. You have Festus Keyamo, who used to be an activist, who is there. There was the other minister from Kogi State who passed on. And I could count for you quite a number of them. I don't even want to begin to count how many are in the parastatal. So really, it is a government of lawyers. And the question is, what is the output? Again, when you have an Attorney General of the Federation who is turning out laws that meet his own spleen, that are not found in any law books, it bounces back, it echoes back to the judiciary, it echoes back to the judicial space to say, how have we fared? And except we want to play the ostrich, the signs are obvious that the judiciary has simply not done enough.
Not done enough. It's a cue for me there. Not done enough. And again, we begin to ask the question: how did it get this far? And how did it start? Talking about how the judiciary has not helped in the democratic process.
You know, very often I talk about how politicians think that they have another country other than this country. So once they come into power, they set up a default system. How do we get somebody who heads the court who will do our bidding? How do we ensure that we put somebody in the office of the Attorney General, for instance, who is more a politician than the person is a professional? So when you already have a situation where the groundwork has been set up for failure, there's hardly anything that can happen. Don't forget that this is the Buhari administration is the administration that took out the Chief Justice of Nigeria by an experte, which means that it did not allow for the other side to be heard. Till date, that issue is yet to be reviewed. And I would have thought that the National Judicial Council should have taken that matter up. Why? Because, you see, if you do something and it becomes an example, it becomes a precedence, it means that when people with more, as the years go by, people are going to follow in that wrong trajectory. Then again, you have the situation at the Code of Conduct Tribunal, where you have the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal, who actually removed the Chief Justice of Nigeria, went on the street and fought with a guard. And he fought with this guard and tried to just put up a front and says that this guard is a Biafran, because he knew that in putting out that term, it was incendiary enough to get in people who will buy into a certain narrative and create an us against them conversation. And how did we even get to a point where Biafra became a bad word? It's because this government has constantly projected itself as though there are certain people in the country who do not deserve to be more Nigerian, who do not deserve to be as Nigerian as the rest of us. And this is why, you had that situation. But Nigerians clamored and cried and said, you cannot have a Code of Conduct Tribunal chair who will act in that manner and he will still occupy that space. And I buy that in, because if you have somebody who already has this kind of mindset, how does he have the objectivity of mind when somebody comes before him? How is he able to divorce his personal sentiment from the facts before him? In other climes, somebody who is more honorable will just take a bow and go. That has not happened. Then you come back again to the issue of the Twitter ban. The Attorney General of the Federation saying anybody who tweets, will be prosecuted. And so Nigerians began to ask, which law prosecutes? And he says, by the time you tweet, you're going to find out which law. You see, Nigeria is not the heirloom of anybody. It's not the personal handbag of anybody. It's not a case where you wake up and you decide you don't like a situation, and so you create laws or you create a scenario where you're going to punish those things that you don't understand. Where you have an attorney general of any country at all, the point and the major work of the attorney general is for him to be the principal advisor of the government. At what point did the president, whose personal tweet, because the Twitter handle was a personal handle, so if you violated the Twitter rules and Twitter took down your tweet, you cannot punish the rest of the country just because you feel that you were slighted. But Nigeria has the Section 308 that provides immunity for presidents, for vice presidents, for governors, and for deputy governors. And because they have always acted within the scope of impunity because of what Section 308 allows them to run through, and wrongly so, because it's supposed to be a shield, not a sword, they have also taken that imagination and mindset to think that no authority, no company can be able to challenge the wrong things that they do. Now, no president should have even put out such a tweet. It is a moment where people are agitated, and it's not just the people from Biafra. I returned back from Port Harcourt this week, and there in Port Harcourt, people are calling for an autonomous state. Those in the Niger Delta, they are saying, look, the issues that are there have not yet been dealt with. In the Middle Belt, people do not have a sense of belonging. In Odudwa, the South is also talking about, a different state, because Nigeria, in the manner in which it is constituted, is not working for them. And it is all of this cries that you see it crystallized under the call for restructuring. And what is really restructuring? People saying, look, this country is not working for us. How can we repurpose it to serve all of us? But these are not the issues that are on the front burner of this present government. They're constantly thinking about ways in which to create division, constantly thinking about ways in which to set an agenda that is everything but national, and all of us are suffering. And the judiciary, which should provide the balancing act, has not been able to find the spine to do that, to create that balance, to call the president to question. The office of the attorney general, which should be providing the right kind of advice so that this government can stabilize, is doing the opposite. So this is the problem that we have. For 3 months, the judiciary was on strike. You didn't hear Nigerians clamoring. It means one of two things. We're either not relevant, or we have not served the purpose, or it could be both, and even more. So when you put all of these things together, you would see that really there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And sometimes you find the judiciary wanting to run away from these things and to create a front and to try to explain away things. But the reality is the judiciary, which should be the balancing act, is not doing the job.
Now, I go back to why and when all this started, and because for some of us that were there way back, that we saw a judiciary that worked, a judiciary that was strong, and then how it came to this point where the judiciary cannot muscle up to its biddings to say that yes, it can give us what we would say as Nigerians as the judiciary is working. How do we get it wrong with the judiciary?
To answer that question, let me first say that we cannot profile everybody. There are still men and women in the judicial sector who are doing their jobs. But I think that they need to be able to amplify the work that they are doing by being more consistent. Because I understand that, with the way the country is now configured, people are even afraid to do their jobs. And we cannot, look, if we do not stand for something, then we'll fall for everything. And under the military era, you had judges who, in the difficulty of the moment, still held down the sanctity of the judiciary, the independence of the judiciary, but you don't see that happen. For instance, during the strike, there were political cases that were still going on in court. So if political cases were going on in court, you can be sure that, the whole essence of the 3-month strike is not there. And of course, they've returned by a whipping cross. For 3 months, the courts were closed and they have returned and there is nothing to show for it. So there has not been anything to hold on to say this is how the government has shifted ground to allow for the independence and autonomy of the judiciary. So how did we get to this point? Number one, the process of appointment of judges. Very important. I've always said that those who should man the courts must be people of impeccable integrity, not even heads of court. So if these people are not adjudged as people of integrity, they have no business being there. And that's why I have a problem with terms like incorruptible judge. If you're a judge, were you supposed to be corrupt in the first instance? And so the system should not even allow for a situation where somebody who is corrupt will get into there. Now, I hear people say every now and again that, the pay package, the welfare has to be improved. That's a given. But you see, that's not the primary purpose why people should be corrupt in that space. The point is, the welfare package of every judge is well known. If you Google it, you will find it. So by the time that you're taking up this appointment, you know what this is. If it's not going to meet your needs, then the next thing you should do is to go into business. Don't come into a space where people who feel aggrieved come in to seek justice, and then here they are running from a lion only to be faced by a serpent. And it makes it very difficult. But again, if you look at the kind of executive that we run, the kind of person who is president determines to a large extent what the judiciary would look like, except you have the head of the judicial office being somebody who is clear in principles and how to protect the autonomy of that space. There are presidents who have been at the forefront of respecting court orders. There are those who will not. It was under the Buhari regime that we had the houses of judges and justices being raided. If you say that a judge has stolen money or whatever, take him through the due process. Don't take him through a situation where you send fear to the whole system. And that's what has happened. If somebody high up there has been taken out, is it you who is down the ladder? So it created a psychological problem even for the judiciary. And this is something that the judiciary has not been able to move away with. But again, in the succession pattern, I think that the judiciary owes it as a duty to the judiciary to ensure that, look, if somebody ahead has been taken away in a manner that is not right, in a manner that is not supported by law, then the person who is next in line should be clear and principled enough to say, no, I'm not going to step into that space because the government didn't do the right thing. So we are having a lot of crisis in this country. But if you reduce it to one thing, it will be that the issue of right and wrong is still something that we struggle with. We struggle with it in the judiciary, we struggle with it in the legislature, we struggle with it in the executive. And this is not rocket science. If every day we wake up and we make a clear decision that everything that comes before me, I'm going to take I'm going to make the decision to do what is right, there will not be in this kind of mess. But right now, we are running a government and a country by default.
People talk about a smack of dictatorship in a democracy, and the judiciary, again, that arm of government, again, we find it difficult to understand what its role is in a democratic process. For you, a smack of dictatorship in a democracy, how do you place that?
You know, for those who were there during the 1983 era, they say that this is nostalgic for them. It feels like they've been here before, except that the person who was calling the shots then is now wearing Babariga and not wearing the uniform, the military uniform. So I mean, they've been down this road before. And I remember that during the time for the elections, when people were campaigning for President Buhari, my question was simple, really. If you say that this was what happened in 1983, show me what has happened between then and the time of elections that tells you that this is a convert. Nobody could give a clear response. But even for me, who wasn't there in the 1983 era, who didn't understand what was happening because I was too young to understand, I could see that, look, people were making a decision out of emotion and not logic. People were making decisions out of sentiments and not out of clear facts. You see, right now, with the way, let's just even take insecurity as an example. The fact that the country is this insecure, everybody is feeling the heat. Whether you're in the judiciary or you're in the legislature or you're in the executive, everyone is feeling the heat. So we cannot even secure ourselves, because before we talk about anything at all, we must be secured enough to engage the issues. And we're not there yet. So it's really, you can see the deliberate act and the deliberate investment in ensuring that things don't work. And we're seeing it more from the person who is leading than from those who are taking the heat. The other part, though, is that every time people ask me the question, is it that the judiciary is subservient to the executive? And I think that that's a question that the judiciary has to answer. Because in other states where you have heads of courts who understand that the powers are coordinate powers and not that the executive is higher than any other branch, you would see the kind of justice that comes out in those systems as being different. You would see that the courts are turning out judgments that people can respect. But in other states where they have allowed the executive to have a field day running amok, power that is on rampage, not being able to bridle it and put it in a space, you also see how people are suffering. You see the numbers of people who are going on the street. You see the number of people who are losing houses. You see the number of people who are losing jobs. And they are thinking, should we go to court? But if we go to court, what are we going to get out of there? And that is part of what we are suffering in Kaduna State, where this conversation is going on. So this is not really an indictment on any persons. It is a call for truth and a call for action. When you place all the matters on the table, what do you see? It's not about you waiting to look for somebody and think that, oh, the person is attacking you. But the fact is the country as it is constituted working for anybody? Is the state that you're leading as the chief judge who should be balancing situation, is it working? And if it's not working, what are you doing? What is the Attorney General of that state doing? What is the Attorney General of that federation doing? These are the questions And it doesn't take a lot for people to just have that mirror moment to look at how actions and inactions are costing people so much. And it's time to wake up, because every day you wake up, it's one thing after the other. Of course, when it is an unjust system, it's like a downward spiral. It just keeps going down and down until somebody finds the courage to say, no, this is how far this evil will go and no more. And I hope that by having this conversation, there will be more people in the judiciary, there will be more people in the legislature, more people in the executive, and we, the citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we will not give up our rights. We will not give up on this country. We will take our stand and ensure that the right things are done, no matter what it takes.
That the governors are turning into emperors, as some people have said. And the question would be, with these arms of government we have, what has led to that? How has that been allowed for the governors, in states, and taking over what even the three arms of government will be seen as that at local government level, that we can have, that arm of government. How has it been possible for the, governors to turn to emperors today?
One, again, because the judiciary also has not defined some of those powers. In places and in states where governors are running it like their personal empires, I'm sure that there are people who are filing cases. What is the decision of the court? What is it? The court cannot sit on its hand and just say, well, but we have given the judgment, it's not for us to implement. Okay, if they are not going to respect your judgment, when they bring their own cases, then the same rules should apply. Because you see, you cannot apply the law differently for people. Section 6 of the 1999 Constitution says that the powers that has been vested on the court is over people, over government, over all authorities. So it's enormous power. It's such that no government should be able to come and trample over the courts. How did the judiciary fare during the military era? How is it that the government then, as autocratic as they were, couldn't hold the judiciary to the jugular? This is what the judiciary itself needs to go back and look through history and see how it can redeem itself. And for those, I'll continue to call on those who constantly do it right. I think that they need to understand that the reason why things haven't completely fallen apart is because of how they are holding the fort. And they must continue to hold the fort. Whether there are what do you call it now? Whether there are, because sometimes, it can be discouraging. You say, what is in it for me? Good is its own reward. Just do it, because you would never know how this good will come back to you. But the fact that, again, things are going on right, that when evil comes to your doorpost, you push it and you do not allow it to have a field day, tells you that you are winning. And let's keep on winning. In our small corners, let's keep on winning. Whether it's in the magistrate court, the customary court, the Sharia court, in every court at all, High Court, Federal High Court, Court of Appeal, Supreme Court, judges need to rise up. And then those who work in that sector, talking about the registrars and the beliefs and everything, they also have a role to play. Every single act goes into the system, and it either makes it right or it makes it wrong. So everybody has a role to play in this business of sanitizing the judiciary. And of course, even the litigants themselves. If you go to court and you fail at the first instance, but you know that you are not supposed to lose that case based on the facts, then don't give up. Keep going. Keep going, because the more you go, the more you challenge the system and you put the system on its toes until the system delivers.
The program is Perspectives, and it's coming to you on Victor 98.9. And we're talking about democracy and the role of the judiciary and how it has fared in our democratic process. Gloria Ballason, Barrister Gloria Ballason, Chief Executive Officer of House of Justice, Public Affairs Analyst, and a commentator on national and international matters, sharing thoughts with us on this topic. We'll come back after this break. Welcome back. Is the program Perspectives this morning, coming to you on Invicta 98.9. And we're looking at the judiciary and how it has fared in our democratic process. We're going 22 years into it, and problems and worries are coming out of this democratic process, and the judiciary and the role it was assigned to play to it, so to say, on this democratic process. Barrister Gloria Bellison, Chief Executive Officer of the House of Justice, a commentator on national and international matters, and a public affairs analyst, sharing thoughts with us on this issue. Barrister, again, we begin to look at how the judiciary has been muscled in or out of the role it has had to play in this democratic process. And for you, when it all started, how it started, and the players in all of this process. Again, I want to take you on Nigerians believing, especially the common man, in the judiciary, and saying that, yes, with the judiciary, I can talk about, getting justice. But again, the disappointments that have come into all of this. For you, with the 10th Assembly, again, its role in all of what the judiciary should do. What's your take on the 10th Assembly here, or especially on judiciary matters?
Well, if I were to rate it between the judiciary and the legislature, I would say that the judiciary has even fared better than the legislature, quite clearly. This is one legislature where it's a yes sir legislature. Lawan, as the Senate president, what has he opposed that the presidency has brought? Nothing. We are having this conversation at a time where, there is even a consideration for Loretta Onochie to be a member of INEC. A serious Senate would not even allow that to come true because the provisions are clear. But anybody who has been on social media, especially Twitter, where she was, hounding everybody, you know that this is an extremist. She doesn't even have the capacity to be objective about the issues in the country. And then you go also to the speaker. It's the same thing. But, it goes back to what I said earlier on about how the executive, before even assuming powers, they try to create all the fault lines. Who would be there in the National Assembly, who would be there in the judiciary, that would create for us the path to least resistance. And let me just lay the land properly. When you destroy the system, you don't understand that governance is a revolving door, that tomorrow you will be out of government. And at least once in your life, you will need the system to work for you. But if you have destroyed it, how does it even work? This is a Senate and the House, the entire legislature, that is watching a situation where the president has failed every now and again in terms of insecurity, even prioritizing the issues. So take, for instance, when you go to the Global Terrorism Index, it's more than 4 years now that the issue of the herdsmen has constantly featured as the most terrorized group in the world. But in Nigeria, it is not yet recognized. And yet you would find that there is more talk about, let us settle with them. But when you go now to the issue of IPOB, or you go to the Shiites, you don't have that conversation about let us dialogue. So it shows you that there is no even sincerity of purpose on how to deal with the issues. So what should a proper legislature do? I listened to one of the senators, I can't remember his name, easily now, but he is from the South. And he said that people in the Senate ensure that they come late for sitting because they're tired of all the 1 minute silence for the Nigerians, that it has now become a normal thing. That every time you're either counting the dead in Kebbi State or in Kaduna State or in Oyo State but nothing is happening. But there is a provision in the Constitution that says that you can impeach the president. Why is it difficult to impeach the president? If that couldn't happen, then it will not be in the laws. But not once has the legislature even brought that up to say, look, Is he performing well? Why are Nigerians endangered? Don't forget that before Buhari came into power, we were dealing with insecurity only in the northeast. But now we're dealing with insecurity everywhere. And the cry for cessation actually is not just happening in the southeast. People are now saying, look, this country is not working for us. Have you gone to the international airports and seen the number of Nigerians who are living in droves out of this country? Because I listened to the story of a young guy who works in NLNG, and his wife works in Shell. They abandoned the work and they left to go and start all over again. And people were saying, but you have a highbrow job. But you see, that job will not protect him when he steps out of his house in the morning. And this is the reason why even our people are leaving. Does the Senate, does the House of Representatives, does our legislature understand the seriousness of what we are dealing with, and what are they doing about it? So you don't see any commitment on the side of the legislature to say, look, let us even put the executive on its toes. The judiciary may be a bit limited, maybe a bit limited in how they can intervene. They have to wait for the cases to be filed in court, but not the legislature. They can make statements, they can order the president to come, they can set up an impeachment proceeding. These are all actions that have been allowed in the court, in the constitution, but none of these actions have been taken by the legislature. So we are really dealing with a situation of epic fail, which now leaves us with one option. What are Nigerian citizens going to do about this landslide fail that we are seeing?
You just took that out of me, but again, coming back to citizens' responsibility in all that is happening today, are we a gullible people? And what has led us to this gullibility that we are into today, that Nigerians cannot question for accountability, transparency, and all that has to do with governance?
Mr. Labi, the stakes are high. I don't want to say that Nigerians are gullible, but I want to say that we can still do more. And I give you a few examples. We saw the NSAS protest. If you look at it, the young people who came out, especially in the Lagos area, they are privileged people. So which tells you that they are suddenly waking up and being alive to the responsibility of, look, we may be comfortable, but if the country doesn't work for us, it's only a matter of time. We'll be engulfed by the things that other people in Ebute Metta, for instance, are suffering, or those in the slums. And they held forth. And you see, what is brilliant about that protest for me is that it wasn't just a protest of we don't want. They also demonstrated what can happen. They demonstrated capacity. They demonstrated a sense of togetherness. You would see it in how they protected each other when it was time to pray. You also see the innovation that took place at the point of protest. Then what happened? Then protesters were killed. Then the government came out and said, no, nobody was killed. Then eventually CNN came out with the report and showed that people were killed. Then the panel was set up, and then bodies began to be shown. People began to count their losses. And so Nigerians have been able to demonstrate that, look, they are not, the way the country is working is being run right now is not working for them. But we have to do more. We have to do more. On this issue of insecurity, we must remember that this is not how it has always been. I could never have imagined 10, 15 years ago that we'll be at this point where students cannot even be in school. But right now, we're talking about a situation in Kaduna State where schools who are at the outskirts, honestly, the most logical thing to do right now is to protect those students, because what we have seen is that those at the outskirts are not safe. So students who are, just at the fringe of cities are not even safe. How do we then, protect them? In the homes, people are not safe. On the streets, people are not safe. And that is why the conversations must go on. But you see, the government is demonstrating its lack of good faith by shutting down civic spaces, by shutting down the avenues where they can even have a direct conversation with the government. The issue about the Twitter ban is not just that a social media space has been shut down. The effect of Twitter is different from Facebook, for instance. It's different from Instagram or TikTok. Those are just places of social interaction. But on Twitter, you're talking directly to the person who is representing you. You're talking directly to the president. You're talking directly to parastatals of government. You're talking directly to the UN. And it is this space that allows for that audacity of conversation that has now been shut down by the government. So it's really unfortunate. But I am happy that, cases are being filed, not just in Nigeria, but abroad on this Twitter ban and what it feels like. But again, before the court comes out with its decision, I think that those who are around the president, they owe him a duty of truth. They owe him a duty to tell him what the facts are. And I frankly don't even know whether this is the right way to say it. Because you see, if you want to be the president of a country like Nigeria that has over 2 million people, you need to know what the issues are. You need to be able to manage diversity. You need to be able to have the ability to listen. You need to be able to have the ability to engage with the facts. Unfortunately, it seems like we have a president that was never really prepared for the gravity of what the office entails. But it's not too late for him to redeem himself if he really wants to.
The program is Perspectives. Be part of this conversation. Let's hear you on 081 40,000 989, 081 40,000 989, or 070 87 800 989. 070-87-800-989. The judiciary and its role on the democratic process. Hello, good morning.
I am Job International.
Let's hear you, Job.
Yes, you have done justice to the topic. I want to appreciate your guest also. My first take is judiciary under siege in Nigeria under this government. Like what your guests have just said, in the administration of Buhari, we have more than 12 ministers as ministers, including information ministers and justice ministers. But today, unfortunately, these are the people that they are bending low, not even telling the president the point of law about the Twitter ban from the Minister of Information. He did not follow the rules of law. About the persecution of Twitter ban by the Minister of Justice, is not fair because it did not follow law. But the erection of the law in this land through this administration was the removal of Onoge. In the history of any judiciary in the world, there is no lower officer to remove the superior, which the Court of Conduct Bureau judge to remove CJN without due process. That was the beginning. And in this administration, they are the only people that clamp down on the judges, juries, the most respected institution. They are being clamped down by like criminals. Even Shekau were sleeping well at that time, and other criminals were sleeping well. But judges were clamped down 12 o'clock, midnight, 1 o'clock, break your house, just come and pick you and just pen you. These are the problem that now have swallowed the judiciary arm of government.
Job.
Now, sir, how can we get justice while a judge that preside over the Mr. President judge case in appeal court from Abuja, within the 3 months, they have been promoted to Supreme Court judges. And you want the judge to be firm? So they have now created fear into the judges. So you should do what they want, and you get it for EFCC.
Okay.
Look at when the chairman of Nigerian Bar Association at that time was standing for, that man from Akwa Ibom, was standing for Onoge. Now they clamp down on him with EFCC, using EFCC to arrest judges and lawyers. This is the beginning of the tyrannism in this country.
Okay, Job International, we got you on that. And it all boils down to saying that Job was talking about siege, is the judiciary under siege?
I think it couldn't be said better than how Job International said it. And what I take from that is that if the judiciary thinks that Nigerians are not seeing this, Job has just demystified it. There is nothing he has said there that, is not what the truth is. that if you have somebody who, you know, superintended the case of the president and is now in the Supreme Court, what does a reasonable man on the street think about that? Or like the case you have in Imo State, where the person who was number 4 was now taken to number 1 and he became a governor. What does the person on the street think about it? So as much as they try to mystify these things, Nigerians are saying that, look, there is a failure and that the judiciary truly is under siege. But I also would like to say that the independence of the judiciary is not taken, it is given. It is the judiciary itself that cedes its powers. No executive will take the powers of a judiciary if it has not given itself.
Still with more calls, you know, from out there. And hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Tony Aladi.
Good morning.
Good morning to your guests.
Good morning.
I'm just calling you from Malali.
Yes, let's hear you.
Judiciary under siege. My question here is, to your guests, in your own opinion, what would you like to suggest to our own judiciary to do in order to liberate themselves from this kind of bondage that they are in? And in your own opinion, what do you think that we should start doing right now that will bring a total transformation and reformation of this country? In your own opinion, please, I would like to hear it from you.
Okay, pass together. Straight to you, Barrister.
Well, the judiciary needs to audit itself. It's a case of physician heal thyself. The other issue also is that the judiciary needs to come to a moment where it understands the gravity of its duty, especially in a democracy. And if they refuse to allow the bad eggs to stay in that system, you know, we wouldn't be where we are now. So, for instance, with the Onogan situation, if we had judges clamoring and saying, but this is not right, they will fix the system. Or if you have the National Judicial Council also pushing and saying, but this was not properly done. And even now, it's not too late to say, let's write that. So that, you know, in the history of our country, we will not constantly refer back to this kind of ignoble past where we say, oh, one chairman removed the Chief Justice of Nigeria. It's not how our history should read. We can write it even now. And then in terms of the transformation of this country, first, the political space needs to be flooded with the right set of people, and the political parties themselves are not helping. You're fielding people that are candidates that are no candidates at all. So at the end of the day, people are forced to make a choice between a better devil. Ooh, so we go back to the same things. I think that the political parties should have principles and ideologies that they should be able to run with for the betterment of the country.
Still with one call or two before we bring it to a close here. Hello, good morning. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Tony.
Good morning.
Good morning to the guests in the studio.
Good morning, sir.
Francis calling.
Francis.
Honestly, I'm so happy to hear the voice of the guest this morning and his explanations. And second to the last comment he made concerning judiciary rounds it all. Number one in Nigeria is that we are not practicing democracy the way it's being practiced other places because of the nature of our constitution. Because that is where these people drive their powers to do all this impunity thing at liberty and go free with it. And the second one, just like she rightly said, judiciary are the one holding themselves on ground. Because these political leaders has no power to pocket them the way it is today if they realize their position in democratic setting. They are the ones that is holding the constitution. They have every power to let these people do the right thing, or democracy will be stopped if they want. Because just like the strike they went 2 months ago, the workers, had they been there continued, the political class will do what is expected of them to do for that autonomy they are demanding. But because most of them are interested in being appointed by a politician in one office or the other, That is the reason why they are where they are. And we can never achieve anything as long as democracy is concerned in this country. Thank you.
Thank you. There. Listen to that, too. Your take, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Francis that the judiciary needs to enter into the majesty of what that space entails. You know, in countries that work, because right now our own country is not working, when you say the judiciary, you would see the kind of objectivity that goes on with it. And you see even the example with the US. With Trump, he was bamboozling his way into the space. But even the judges that he appointed looked at the law and they didn't side with him. They sided with the law. Why? Because it is better to have a country and a future than to be with a person who is here today and will not be there tomorrow. And this is really the simple logic that the judiciary needs to think about. That, you have an opportunity to put in something there to work for the rest of us. If you leave that opportunity and side with this person who is here today but absent tomorrow, you would have lost a vital opportunity. But guess what? The gangrene and the cancer of what you have done will continue to spread wide. And that is why we must stop the evil that we're doing, whether by our action and inaction. There are some who are not corrupt, but they will not do anything to stop the corruption. You are still an enabler. So whether you actively participated or you passively participated, you may have come from different ships, but you're in the same boat. It is your action that has brought the country where it is right now. So the judiciary needs to enter the majesty and into the prominence of what they should be doing. Honestly, if they understand their powers, there is no executive anywhere that will run short over them. No executive.
Perspectives this morning and judiciary in the democratic process and how it has fared. Gloria Ballason sharing thoughts with us on what needs to be done. I'd like to thank you once again for coming on the program this morning.
It's always a privilege to be with you and to share these thoughts. And I hope that Nigerians will not give up on Nigeria. There's just nowhere to go. Come on, wherever we go to, there's only one home. So we need to put our foot and our feet down and do all that it entails to protect this space. Let's give it our all. If we give it our all and it fails, and I'm sure we're not going to fail, let's gather our energies together and save this country, because things are really, really bad. But we must continue to advocate in every single space that we have, in the market space, in the social media, wherever we are. We must continue to do what is right. Every contribution that we put into this system takes us forward.
Barrister Gloria Ballason, Chief Executive Officer of House of Justice, commentator on national and international matters, and a public affairs analyst with thoughts on how, the judiciary can fare in a democracy. I'd like to thank you, Job, for, sharing, putting us across to the people this morning, and wisdom, putting us in the pictures. We'll come back with perspectives tomorrow. Have a lovely day.